Hey there, Bubby! Welcome to Shanghai. My name is Duke, and this is an unboxing video. We're going to take a look inside this short box of comic books and see what we've got. I literally have no idea what is in here. So I am processing these books for work. I will be grading them for sale on eBay. Let you know that right up front. But this really isn't a commercial. This video it's just a way for me to share some of the fun that I get to have every day. As a lifelong comic book collector, getting to work with comic books all day is pretty sweet, I must say. But this is probably the most fun thing I do in a day, cracking into a new box. Because like I said, I have no idea what is in this box, what has been sorted in by the owner of the company as he sorts collections that come into our warehouse in Freeport, Maine from all over the world. And it's that chance to relive the excitement, the sense of discovery that I used to get as a kid buying comic books off the newsstand, before comic book stores even existed. Going to the newsstand every week, you just never knew what treasures you were going to unearth, what you were going to find, something different every week, all kinds of things. The variety back then in the 70s compared to today, you know, where it's pretty much all superheroes. Back then it was amazing. You had funny animal comics, you had romance comics, you had Archie and Harvey, CHARLTON, Gold Key, in addition to, of course, Marvel and DC. So there was always something different. And that's a little bit of the excitement that I get when I crack into one of these boxes. So I just wanted to share that with you a little bit. And scrolling across the bottom, you can see some information about the company that I work for, as far as the different websites and things like that. But like I said, it's not really a commercial, but you know, I want to be upfront with you, let you know what I'm doing, where these books are coming from, where they're going. All of these will end up on eBay for sale as raw singles, and as I said, I'm the grader. And well, I should probably do this in one stack. So I've given you a little preview there. And I'm just pulling these out of the box and taking a look and seeing what we've got. And we'll talk a little bit about each of the books. This is a chance for me to just kind of be a fanboy and blather a little bit about fun comic books. So I hope you will enjoy. Now, again, like I said, these are coming in for sale on eBay. All of the big books, you know, the Amazing Fantasy 15, which we just got one in, by the way, those go to CGC for grading and are sold on a website called Comic Link. So you won't see any really big books in here, but I think we'll have some fun with what we do have, because again, these are all books that are good enough to be sold on eBay as singles. These are not going to be part of lots. Although, again, some of the books that come in go into lots. We get everything, you know. We get everything from an Amazing Fantasy 15 that we got this week down to books that end up in the dollar box in our retail store, .com Comics in Freeport, Maine. So let's take a look here, see what we've got. And this is some Justice Leagues. And like I said, I will be grading these, and some of these you will see on a grading video. I don't have time to do videos of every single thing I grade, but you know, I do about 20 minutes a day. And the Go-Go checks, I loved the Go-Go checks. Although they came and went before me, but it's still something that I loved. I did love, though, when I was a kid in the 70s, the annual JLA JSA team up. That was the coolest thing. There's some Nick Fury with some Steranko art. Peanuts does pretty good on eBay, surprisingly well. We had a copy come through recently that we sold as a single of, I forget what it was. It was a Nancy comic book, but I can't remember if it was a Nancy or if it was Tip Top Comics. But it was like the second or third appearance of Peanuts in the comic books, and that went crazy. We probably should have sent it to CGC, but we just, none of us knew what was in it. Well, by golly, the people on eBay knew, and that thing went through the roof. And you know, through the roof for a single, for a Nancy comic book. We're talking a couple $100. I think it got up to 300, somewhere in there. But that book did pretty well and surprised us. So we learned our lesson, and we have a better handle on what peanut comic books are worth. So I think probably what we should do also, and I'll pick this one because it looks like it's in a little bit of a lower grade, so I'm not going to mess it up with handling, but you know, let's look inside. I mean, that's definitely peanuts. And what I don't know, and maybe you can leave comments below, although I guess I could go to the Grand Comic Books database and find out if these are new comics or if they're strip reprints. And I'm going to guess with the kind of irregular panels that perhaps these are new to the comics and not strip reprints. Tonto. Surprisingly, Lone Ranger and Tonto books do not do well for us at all. If it's a high grade and it's a fairly early run, they'll do well. This one will be, well, kind of a low grade because it's missing a third of its back cover. But still, I mean, that's a 1955 comic book right there. You can see in the indicia. And this one, which is in better grade, a 10-cent comic book, and that's probably going to end up being maybe a 4 or 5. I don't know, just ballparking it. But that's 1954. But on eBay, that's probably not going to go for more than $10. If it does more than that, that will surprise me. Especially because it's not a photo cover of Clayton Moore, and it's not like this one, an early one before the blue jumpsuit, you know, before the Clayton Moore TV show when he wore a red shirt. Those will do. That one will do a little better. So it's, you know, it's kind of surprising to me that I don't know why, but Lone Ranger books just don't seem to do that well on eBay. Do you have a theory why that might be? Here's a book I bought off the stands as a kid. Still have my copy. Marvel Superheroes Secret Wars number 8. And some people, you'll see this sometime listed as the first appearance of the black suit. Well, it's more the origin of the black suit because the symbiote suit had already appeared. INHUMANS number 1. And I think this has George Perez art. And yes, it does, right there. Doug Moench is the writer. I never knew how to pronounce that as a kid, and I still, frankly, really don't. Still. But I can say George Perez well enough. This book is a reprint of the first Wolverine appearance, and it does, you know, surprisingly well. You know, it's maybe a $5 or $6 comic book, but, you know, it's worth processing as a single. This one is fun. So this is the second appearance of Groot. This is a bunch of the monsters who were brought back. The pre-hero age monsters, when that's pretty much what Marvel did, Marvel Atlas Comics. And they brought them all back to fight the Hulk. So where is Groot? Because Groot was not a tiny baby adorable tree. He was a big, bad, evil monster. Where is Groot? You got everybody in here, but I guess that's Groot right there. And look, he says more than I am Groot. He's fairly loquacious. But it is Groot, the monster from Planet X. So that is Groot's second appearance. His first appearance in the actual Marvel Universe. Because, again, his first appearance was before Fantastic Four number 1. Here is a Bat book. And we get a lot of books in this era of the Batman TV show. You know, right in that 66, 67, 68. I think because circulations were so high. They were up above 1 million copies. This one, unfortunately, has a blown staple. The circulations were so high that these books are pretty plentiful today. Most of them that we get have certainly been read, but they're not something that is in any kind of shortage. Here we've got Some classic Kirby Fantastic Four, Stan Lee, Jack Kirby. And going back to these books, I really, really enjoyed Kirby's art. By the time I came along in the mid-70s, Kirby was getting kind of tired, and the most I knew of Jack Kirby was Captain Victory and his Galactic Rangers. But going backwards in time, I really learned to appreciate Jack Kirby. See, now this is the variety right here. Like I said, I never know what I'm going to find in a box, sorted for singles, and it is just like going to the newsstand when I was a kid, when you never know what that next book is going to be. But then, you know, you get little gems like this, REPTISAURUS. And this is just fun to look at. It's a Charlton book, and I, frankly, of course, this one would have predated me, but as a kid, I didn't like Charltons just because they look so cheap on the newsstand compared to the Marvel and DC's, and I really would only buy a Charlton. I'd look at them, I'd look at the $6 Million Man and whatnot, but I would really only buy them when there just weren't enough new Marvel and DC's that week, you know, generally because I got to the newsstand late and some other little asshole got to the newsstand before me and bought up all the good books. That's when I would end up buying a Charlton or a Gold Key. So here we go, some Archie, Life with Archie, 72. I'm not sure why that's in there, even though it's a good grade. Archie doesn't sell super well. Some of the 12 centers do, but generally it's the earlier books that sell well, or the oddball stuff like this, like Archie's Madhouse. I don't think there's really any Archie to speak of in here. It's all humor, satire kind of stuff. There's a couple of Captain Sprocket. Now, you know, it's funny, every time Archie revives the Red Circle heroes, the Fly and the Comet, you never see him bring back Captain Sprocket. Why is that? Jughead's jokes. Number 4. All right, we'll set those to the side and grab the next stack of books here and see what we find. Oh my. Sorry. I see him a little bit before you do. All right, some more Archie. I've seen this one several times. I don't know why. You know, there are books that you see over and over again, more commonly than other books. And that's one that I see a lot. And it's a giant book. Some more Archie. The go-go mood is very contagious. Now, this is what I was laughing at. This is another book I bought as a kid. Probably I wasn't a kid. I was in my late teens by the time this came out. I remember being excited about it because, you know, you didn't have 27 Spider-Man books, you know, on the stands every week like you do now. They still, back then, were afraid of overexposing any of the characters. And so you had Amazing Spider-Man, you had Spectacular Spider-Man, which was a big deal when that came out. And then, you know, other than Marvel Team Up, this was only the 3rd book that starred Spider-Man, and it starred him in his black suit. A number 1 with the black suit. I think I bought 5 of these when I was a kid. I did the same thing with Crisis on Infinite Earths. I think I bought 5 or 6 copies of that as well. So all my extra copies are gone now. I still have 1. Mine is the newsstand copy. And you do see some differentiation in price. Overstreet doesn't really reflect it. A lot of the online price guides don't really reflect it, but we are starting to see on some books some differentiation between, and this would be once you get into kind of the 80s, once the newsstand has really started to slack off, the newsstand books are a little more rare. So you do see a price disparity between a direct sales book and one that has the UPC code that was sold on the newsstands. The newsstands are a little more valued. And I think these are all direct sales. And so I was laughing because this clearly came from a collection where somebody did the same thing I did. They bought like 5 or 6 of them. And those are all going to be, you know, 9.0s probably anyway. I mean, I don't know. I've got to sit down and grade them. But we've got a whole stack of Web of Spider-Man at number 1. Now, we won't put them all up in the same day and Probably not even the same week. They'll probably go up one at a time. And here we've got Watchmen #1. And, of course, that is a big book. Well, I say a big book. I mean, that'll probably go for, $10, which is kind of surprising given the prevalence of the trade paperbacks of Watchmen. I mean, there are just so many versions of Watchmen out there, but people still want that first original issue. And, even the Spideys here, these, whoops, went too far. These Web of Spideys will probably go for $20 or $30 each. So, I guess I got rid of mine a little too early. Transformers #1, that is a big book. When I say big, pretty much anything that we think is going to go for easily more than $100, those will go to CGC. So when I say a big book, I'm talking, it'll probably go on eBay as a single in that $50 to $100 range. Maybe 40, but we try not to do as a single anything that we think is going to sell too low, because of course there are labor costs involved in the grading, the listing, the shipping. So if you sell a book for too little, you end up losing money. So pretty much everything you see here as a single we expect is going to go for $10. There are some, like the Spider-Man Wolverine, that end up in the singles box all the time, and I keep saying, it's really not a single. That's probably going to go for $3 or $4. But Spawn is a book that is kind of disproves the law of supply and demand, because there are a billion of Spawn #1s out there, all of them in high grade. But that will still easily go for, between $10 and $15, maybe as high as $20. They go. People want them, which is, again, surprising, because every collection we get in has about 4 of them in it. It's such a common book, and you would think that being so common, being around in such numbers out there, that would depress the price a little bit. But it really doesn't. I mean, it's steady, it's not going to go up in value. It'll never, Spawn #1 will never be a $50 or $100 book, but it shocks me that it will sell all day long for at least 10 and upwards of 15 or 20. This is very popular, the Punisher miniseries. Sometimes we will sell this as a complete set, and it does super well, even in kind of very finish grade. These all look to be, again, I'll have to sit down and do the actual grading, but just eyeballing them, I would say that they are going to be, 9s anyway. So these will be singles. And it's primarily what makes them so popular, I think, is the Mike Zeck artwork. I loved Mike Zeck, and his heyday on Punisher and Captain America wasn't very long, but those, to this day, remain some of my favorite books. And here's a book I really enjoyed when I was a kid. Well, I say kid. I was probably in my teens when this came along, but I did enjoy it because it was kind of a throwback. Continuity was getting a little overbearing at that point already. And this was just a nice, fun, pretty much self-contained book. And Power Pack does not do that well on eBay. I'm not really sure why this is in the singles box. But maybe it's because we didn't have like a whole run. To sell Power Pack, you have to get a nice run in nice condition, and then it will sell pretty well. Well, not pretty well. I mean, you can get a 10-book lot for $10 of Power Pack. But it is a fun book. It's a good book to buy. If your thing is not just investing in comic books, but actually reading them, that is a book that's worth buying. Batman, The Dark Knight Returns. It took me 20 years to get this book, #2. I bought the original. By this time, of course, even in Maine, comic book stores were a thing, and this was available only in comic book stores. But I lived about 45 minutes each way from the nearest comic book store at the time. And today, I'm 90 minutes away from the nearest one that I work at. But anyway, it was like a 40-minute drive, and so I got #1 when it first came out, and I did not get number 2. They were sold out by the time I got there. It had a little bit of a problem as a teen with keeping a license consistently. The state just seemed they seemed to want my license more than I did. Let's just put it that way. And so I missed number 2, and I didn't want to. Well, for a long time I couldn't find it, and then when I could find it, it was more than I was willing to pay because I was very obstinate. I did not want to pay more than I would have paid if I'd got it off the stands. And so I was very obstinate. And it took me like 20, 25 years, 30 years to finally get a copy of number 2. So that's my story. Killing Joke, that does really well. Let's just take a real quick look and see what printing this is. This is a weird book in that, and that's a first printing. But this is a weird book in that some of the later printings do as well or better than the first printing. And it's kind of a weird thing with comic book collectors. There are some of them out there who think a second or third print is more valuable because there are fewer of them. And you know, it's like we were talking the supply and demand earlier with Spawn. Even though there are so many out there, people are willing to pay for them. With the Killing Joke, because there are theoretically fewer of these second, third, fourth prints, those are the ones people are willing to pay more for. I don't understand it myself. But again, that's a book I got when it first came out. X Factor number 1. This is something everybody thought was going to be huge. And the Apocalypse appearances are pretty big in the back market, but pretty much X Factor was a non-entity, and this collection has clearly came from somebody who thought they were buying X-Men number 1. And here's the big book. So that's the first appearance of Apocalypse. The first full appearance. Here is his first cameo appearance. And so like I said, we'll have to parcel out those X-Force number 1s. But X-Force number 1 does not do that well. You know, it's like a $5 book on eBay. Maybe occasionally, you know, you'll get a couple people competing for it and it'll go up to 10. That will be a big book. That's a $50, $60 book. In this condition, I mean, just eyeballing it, it's probably a 7, maybe a 7.5. Nah, it's probably a 7. Actually, it could be a 6.5 because as I feel it, there's a bend here that you probably can't see. But even as a 6.5, even as a 6, that's still going to be a $50, $60 book. And we've got some more Web of Spider-Man. So, if you need a copy of Web of Spider-Man, you know to go to eBay, to the .com comics account, and you are going to see a Web of Spider-Man number 1 every week for probably the next 6 months. Well, now we're getting into some books that have been bagged, and it looks like these are some X-Men books. 129, I think that's the first Kitty Pryde, my platonic girlfriend growing up. The first Kitty Pryde, first Dazzler. So here is, and I don't think they did very well with the movie. I don't think they did well by this story at all, but Days of Future Past, 141, 142, and this is where the title officially changes in the indicia to Uncanny X-Men. Before that, it said Uncanny X-Men on the cover, but the title, the official title, was still just X-Men. But this is also where the prices kind of fall off a cliff. After this, the books, they're still, you know, valuable, but as far as going for 50, 60 bucks a book, even in mid-grade, it's right here where that just, the prices fall right off. So if you are investing in Uncanny X-Men, you definitely want before 142. That is a little bit of Beast action. When he first got his furry body. I don't like today where they make him look more like a cat than the Beast that he did here. But growing up in the 70s, to me, the Beast is an Avenger, not an X-Men. So I still need my Beast in the Avengers. This book does surprisingly well. I wouldn't think or look twice at this book, but that's Dracula. It does pretty well. Hawkman, that's a fun book. Murphy Anderson. Another Marvel Superhero Secret Wars, and there is a, so this one is a UPC. So I bet you watch the .com Comics eBay account, and when you see these go up, the Marvel Superhero Secret Wars with the UPC, even though it's in a little lesser grade, you can see some ticks along here, along the spine. I bet you that will do an order of magnitude better than even the higher grade ones with the UPC, the ones that were in direct sales. Just because, again, this one was less plentiful and much less plentiful in higher grade. So I bet you that does 2 or 3 times better than its counterparts with Spidey's little head down here. So there's that's the first Anarchy, and that's not going to do very well. I did enjoy Norm Breyfogel's run on the Bat books, very much so, but it's going to be like a $5 book. Amazing Spider-Man at 700. This is another one of those books that's kind of oddball because there's no lack of them out there, but it'll do pretty well. Especially, in higher grade, because it's such a big book and it's saddle stitched that it's a little hard to find it in super high grade. And of course, from this era, you need super high grade. There's mid-grade, high grade, and super high grade. And this one is modern enough that people will turn up their noses if it's below a 9 or even an 8.5. Little Hobgoblin action. Some first Hobgoblin, and we'll have to, when we well, actually, you know what? Let's do it right now. Let's look and see if we have our tattoos, because this book needs to have the tattoos inside to be really valuable, and it does. There they are. So some little hellion did not tear that open and wear the tattoos, so that'll end up being a good book. A little Death of Elektra action. I love the current run of Daredevil by Chip Zdarsky. It's a good book. It's still not a ton happens in any particular issue, which is a shortcoming of failing with the modern comic book industry. You buy a book for $4 and it takes you about 10 minutes to read. But Chip Zdarsky's Daredevil, comparatively to everything else on the stands today, head and shoulders above. Chip Zdarsky's Daredevil and Hawkman by Venditti, I think that's how you say his name, is my favorite. That's my favorite DC book. And let's take a look here. Speedy is a Little Junkie. That was him. I've never actually read this story myself, if you want to know the truth. And I did get in the 80s, DC put out a 7-issue collection of the Denny O'Neil, Neil Adams, Green Lantern, Green Arrow run. I got that, and I still haven't read it. So I have to sit down and read these books sometime, but I have to confess that I've never actually read these. And, I could have bought these off the stands, frankly, because this is, well, no, maybe not. This is 1971. No, I guess I wouldn't have. Because I would have been, 67, 69, it would have been 4, actually 3, because I was born at the end of 67. So, I guess, check that. I did not buy these books. But by, 6 or 7, I was buying my own comic books, albeit with an allowance money, or it was a different age. My mother would give me some money to go to the store and buy her some cigarettes. Which they were only too happy in the mid-70s to sell a 7 or 8-year-old kid a box of cigarettes. I'd go to Joe's Smoke Shop in Waterville, Maine, and get my mother some cigarettes, and then with the change, I'd buy a couple of comic books. They were like 25 cents then. This book is fun. We just did this one in a higher grade, and that's I think that's an early Frank Miller Daredevil. What's it say? Newcomer, lanky Frank Miller. I don't want to pull the cover back too far, so I don't know if you can actually read that, but he's introduced as newcomer, lanky Frank Miller. So that book will do well. It's a little before the classic run when he's writing as well. But anyway, back to this book. I like this book because, of course, I live in Maine, and I was always fascinated when I found out about it. And unfortunately, I found out about it after it really wasn't a thing anymore. But they used to have an annual Halloween parade in Rutland, Vermont, that always featured a lot of superheroes, and there were several comic book stories set in and around the parade. And some of them even actually featured the actual comic book writers and artists as characters. Elliot S. Maggin liked to insert himself into stories. There's a great JLA JSA team up where he is the villain. So anyway, those books fascinate me. We've got a couple of Avengers 257, and that is the first appearance of a Nebula. So that was a book you couldn't give away for many, many years until the Guardians of the Galaxy movies, and then suddenly it became just kind of the big thing. Oh, well, look, we've got some more Spawn #1s. I told you, every collection we buy has about 5 of these. Vengeance of Bane, #1. First appearance of Bane. I love the recent Harley Quinn cartoon. Took me a little getting used to the language. In the first episode, I was like, what? Superheroes can't fucking swear. That's just fucking wrong. But once I got used to it, I really enjoyed the cartoon, and I really like the depiction of Bane in it. There's another Spawn. We were talking about Crisis earlier, so there is Crisis. This has got the card. So this is a book that would have originally been in one of those collector packs. I don't know why this is in here, because you've got some color flaking here. So this isn't going to do very well. This is going to be like a $2 or $3 book. But anyway, it's obviously been taken out of the poly bag. It's still got the card, but the poly bag is long gone. There's another Spawn #1. Iron Man 281. This one doesn't do well. I don't know why it keeps ending up in the singles boxes. It's the first appearance of somebody, a red samurai, red something, I don't know. But it only goes for like, $3 or $4. There is Deadpool. I think is that. There's just so many Deadpool series over there that I lose track of which one is the first mini-series, which one's the first ongoing, which one's the first this, the first that. It's just too much Deadpool. Too much X-Force #2 as well. And I keep saying we need to stop selling this book as a single because X-Force #2, it's the second appearance of Deadpool, but nobody cares. It's with Deadpool, it's first or nothing. It's first appearance, it's first miniseries, first ongoing, first, whatever. This second appearance, that's going to be like a $3 book, $4 book, maybe a $5 book. And look at this, we've got a gazillion of them. Be nice if we had a newsstand copy, but these are all direct sales. And we've got, like I said, just about 1 billion of them. Oh! Arcade. This particular issue I loved as a kid. I was probably this would have been 79. I would have been about 11 or 12 when that came out, right in my prime golden age of comic book reading. Didn't much care for Dave Cockrum as a kid. I learned to appreciate him later, but I was all about John Byrne. There's a little bit of Dazzler. This right here is the book that really gave life to Wolverine. People don't realize it today, but Wolverine wasn't that popular. When the first X-Men came out, Wolverine just seemed like a weird, add-on. It was, why is he here? He doesn't seem to fit with the other characters. And there were actually letters written to, remove Wolverine. You should have kept Thunderbird and killed Wolverine. But it was this issue where he goes berserker on the Hellfire Club that really made fans sit up and go, oh. And so it was really with this issue that both Wolverine and the new X-Men really took off. If you look at the statements of ownership and circulation, and I think if you go to Comicron.com, you can probably find the numbers there. Even after the Uncanny X-Men first appeared, the sales were kind of level, even went down a little bit. But it was right around here that things really kind of took off. And that's partly why those earlier issues, again, we spoke about how the cliff at 142, that's partly why the prices drop off, because by that time everybody was on board, everybody was buying the Uncanny X-Men, and of course saving them. So, and this is a newsstand copy as well, so that'll do well. And some more X-Men. My X-Men collection for a lot of years was pretty spotty because, again, I was buying them off the newsstand, and sometimes you'd miss an issue. So I would occasionally miss an issue. Omega Men. I hate Lobo. I hate Lobo with the blinding intensity of 1,000 white-hot suns, but people love Omega Men #3. You can't give away the rest of the series. But Omega Men #3, that's still going to be a $50, $60 book, because it is the first appearance of Lobo, whom everybody just seems to love. Although he doesn't get as much love as he did in the 90s. So now we've got some Bronze Age Bat books. I just did a grading video with Bronze Age Bat books, and I had these very same books. All right, there you go. Man-Bat. Man-Bat was like all the rage for a hot minute back in the early 70s. Batman and Batgirl in Detective Comics. These 100-page super spectaculars of Detective Comics I loved as a kid because you had all of this other stuff in it. But they're relatively hard to get in high grade because these spines end up crushed and mangled. Here's the classic Superman cover, Kryptonite Nevermore, where they introduced the Sand Superman. There he is. And depowered Superman a little bit because at this point he was kind of juggling suns and was a little too powerful, so they tried to knock him down a peg. But this is really about the time Batman started. Well, no, actually, take that back. Batman didn't really, other than the explosion with the TV show, so a couple of years there, Batman really didn't overtake Superman until the mid-'80s, and even after the post-crisis, the Superman books were really good. You had 4 titles that were kind of working effectively as a weekly comic book. And Superman was pretty big then. So the way we think of Batman today, and the rumor is that AT&T is gutting DC Comics and it's pretty much going to be just Batman all the time, which is a dumb move, really overexposing the character. But you don't think of that popularity. That Batman being more popular than Superman is a relatively recent phenomenon. This book does super well, still because of the movie. Mysterio. We're back to some Fantastic Fours. Flash with Green Lantern, and is this one? Is this a Neil Adams? I think it is. Oh no, Dick Giordano. So there's a couple issues of the Flash where after the Green Lantern series was canceled, they had some inventory stories by Denny O'Neil and Neil Adams, and those ended up getting used up in Flash. Some Detective Comics. More Detective Comics, Batman and Robin. The Batman and Batgirl books are a little more popular. Right there. So this book will outsell that one, I bet you anything, actually, because it has Enemy Ace in it. But even without that, it would... Batgirl outsells Batboy. Oh, look at this. Like I said, you just never know what you're going to find in one of these boxes. And it's just such a joy for me. And I hope some of that is coming across to you. And, on eBay, and that's in nice shape. That's probably going to end up being a 6.5, maybe a 7. It's 1959. You would think that this would do well. but that book will probably go for $5 or $6. You know, and not just because the original owner or some owner somewhere along the line stamped his name on the cover. Bugs Bunny just isn't that popular. Well, I mean, he's popular, but the comic books don't go for anything. And, you know, some of these comic books are really good. They are funny, they're enjoyable, the artwork is nice. I really don't know why. I mean, if I was DC, and I was interested in getting young readers and just the general consumer hooked back on comic books, one, I would put out comic book vending machines. Every Walmart in the lobby when you first walk in would have a Hey Kids Comics vending machine. And I would have some Bugs Bunny in there, and you could really, because those cartoons are kind of timeless, they have a style to them that doesn't really tie them to any particular age. I would even, reprint, just like Disney does with the all of the Uncle Scrooge and Duck comics are reprints of stuff that was done overseas. I'd just go ahead and reprint some of these, early Looney Tunes and Bugs Bunny comic books, put them in the vending machines, get the kids hooked with something that's kind of low price, and get them into then the Superman, Batman, because that's how you do it. You got to build your brand loyalty. You get them when they're young, and you pretty much have a consumer for life. So that's what I would do, but nobody's asking me. Porky freaking pig. Beep beep, the Roadrunner, 1960, and I love Sugar and Spike. Look at that. Sugar and Spike, number 47, Sheldon Mayer. These books are classics. They're you just have to enjoy them for the charm of what they are. I guess it's more just the idea of Sugar and Spike, frankly, rather than the stories themselves once I read them. But so Sugar and Spike, number 26, number 30, and Bob Hope. Go-Go Checks 104, so that's near the end of the run. I think he ended at around 106. With Super Hip, now Bob Hope is of course a Bob Hope character. But I think Super Hip, does DC own Super Hip? Not that they could really use Super Hip today, although they could make him some kind of villain or foil of some kind in in the Teen Titans Go comics. That would be kind of cool. But they could make him Super Soy. Instead of Super Hip, you could have Super Soy. I really should be an editor at DC. So, Superman Flash race. I lose track. I don't know if that's the first race, second race, third race. Oh, here we go. It says it right on the cover. If I open my peepers, the third race between the world's fastest superheroes. And I'm sorry, but Flash was faster than Superman. Maybe Superman could fly faster because Flash can't actually fly. So maybe he could get somewhere quicker than the Flash by flying. But on ground, running. And finally, the last book in this box. Oh no, Green Lantern. Everything's yellow. What is he going to do? Too bad. So sad. And that's it. That's that box. So I hope you had fun. I did. So doesn't really matter if you had fun or not. I'm having fun. That's what's important. We'll do another one of these boxes soon. Until then, keep reading comics. Keep having fun. And until we meet again, good night, good luck, and please be good to each other.